Brandy of Gamer Ahmer. She has a YouTube retro-related channel, and this is a game room that, I mean, you guys are going to start salivating when you see the depth of this collection, the kiosks. I mean, this is stuff that you're not going to just be able to find easily. This is the stuff that store displays. Anybody that's a collector out there knows how hard these are to come by, how desirable these are, how much the prices are insane on eBay when these things do get listed. So, Brandy, this amazing collection you've had, when did the collecting start? I got to know.
So, pretty much I've always played video games growing up. I just, unfortunately, didn't have all that kind of money, when I was younger. I wasn't, working when I was real little. I had an allowance. I only got, it was like a couple quarters a week or something, for doing chores around the house. And, I've always played video games, but I was usually a console behind, or I would have to sell my stuff to get the new upcoming console, or maybe like a major holiday or birthday or something. I would get,
right.
One of the consoles. So I finished school and everything. I went to college, and after college, I paid off my student loans, and then I got into, the career of my dreams. And right from then, it just kind of all spiraled out of control. You have a little bit of extra money, and next thing you know, you go into a flea market and you see the Super Nintendo, and all of a sudden it started there in like mid to late 2014 is when I started collecting everything. I barely had anything, and that's when it all happened.
Now, just to make sure, is it on speakerphone, or is there any like TV on that might be echoing? I just wanted to make sure. I think I might have heard something, but that might have been on our end.
I think I did hear something in the background, but I don't have any voice or anything else playing in the background. Everything's on silent.
Okay, no problem. I just want to make sure. And it's not on speaker or anything, the phone?
No, I have it up to my ear. So I don't know if it's like interfering.
Okay, great. We should be fine. I think that just randomly happens sometimes. But what you said is something that I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. You have to take you don't have a lot of money when you're growing up. You got to take your whole system, your whole collection, and it kills you, but you sell it because you want the next console. You want the newest thing. You want the hottest thing in the stores at that time. And then you kind of regret it. And then cut to today, you're able to have, as an adult, we're able to have all these multiple collections. We don't need to sell it off because we have actually real decent paying jobs now, right? Unlike when we were a kid, we're making pennies on the dollar, getting our allowance.
Exactly.
If you had to pick,
so much how it all happened.
All these kiosks you have, I mean, can I get a top three, like most prized? I mean, which kiosk would you just be like, I can't sell that? There's no way. I can't sell that.
So I guess I would have to go with a lot of the older ones, because the new ones you can usually find on Facebook Marketplace, eBay, Letgo, OfferUp, all kinds of places like that. So I would say in my top would be my Dreamcast kiosk, my Sega Dreamcast kiosk. That one, I think I just remember it the most growing up, and I really feel like I like how that one looks a lot. I mean, I have two of them, but I really think that one, the one that's, more complete and in better shape, I would not get rid of that one. And then I would have to say the Nintendo GameCube kiosk, just because, I loved playing on the GameCube. I had a lot of memories with that, and it's such a beautiful kiosk. That one, I had everything pretty much new, because when I bought it, I actually bought two, and they were from a dental office, and they had all of these extra brand new parts and everything with it. So I ended up swapping out everything on one, and then I sold the other one to fund another kiosk. And then I would say probably my Nintendo 64, even though it's a tabletop version. I think the Nintendo 64 kind of relates to me a little bit more. So I would have to say those ones are kind of my favorites.
You know, when we talk about Nintendo 64, there's so many great games, and at the time, it was like entering another world. 3D was in its infancy. You were able to explore these open worlds, whereas before you could only, side scroll in a platformer. How do you feel today, though, going back? Do you still have that same magic when you're playing an N64 game? Or are you kind of like, wow, everything looks like cubes? I mean, do you still have that sense of wonder when you play an N64 game?
Well, I do. I know a lot of people hate on the Nintendo 64, but the reason why it just means so much to me is, I'm a little bit younger, so I didn't grow up with the NES or the Super Nintendo, but I have older family members and older cousins who I would play, their systems. But my first home console was the Nintendo 64, so I still have my jungle green Nintendo 64 from my childhood. So I think there's always going to be like that nostalgia, that, memory, everything else, playing at friends' house. So, just growing up and playing that stuff. And whenever I go back and I play it, yeah, of course there's going to be, wow, this doesn't look as good. But still, just, kind of getting into the gameplay and everything, it really makes me, relive all of those moments, my childhood and everything else. So I still feel, a certain way towards it. I know other people, there's other systems that have a way larger library, but I think at that time, that was something that I really connected with. So I think that's why I kind of went overboard and bought the entire library of Nintendo 64 games, and I have every console variant, controller variant, worldwide, and that's why I kind of just went a little crazy with that system.
And when we think about just looks, the console, the controllers, I mean, they were so colorful. It was like Jolly Ranchers in a console. I mean, the jungle green, the watermelon, the red. It was like, when you look at that and then you look at the PlayStation 1, I mean, which would somebody want? I mean, there's no comparison. It's almost like, how Apple in the late 90s, or what maybe it was the early 2000s, came out with those Bubble Max or whatever, and just the way they look was so important to catch people's eye from a marketing standpoint. And it just made all other computers look boring in a sense that Nintendo was able to kill it marketing-wise with the look of those consoles, too. They just looked amazing. I mean, the jungle green, that's my favorite, by the way. If that was your childhood one, jungle green, because I just relate that to that. It was a Donkey Kong Country pack-in, right? At some point, they released that bundle with the jungle green one.
Yes, they got the. I don't actually have that box. I wish I still had it. I've been actively searching for a box, but yes, it came with Donkey Kong 64, which I love that game. I know a lot of people hate on it too, but I had so much fun playing with all of the different Donkey Kong characters, and each one had a special ability and everything else. I just really remember playing that, and it just looked great. That jungle green, you have the yellow cartridge. It was just crazy. They really took shape with all of those different colors and everything else. And literally, if you hated the color green, your favorite color was there. You could pick anything that you wanted, and I felt like it really appealed to everyone. And then different areas in the world had different color variants. They had different box variants. There's just so much to collect for.
Now, I think a lot of people are going to be jealous of just the amount of space, it seems like, or maybe it's deceiving. Maybe it seems like there's more space than is this a basement? Tell us about where you made space for all these consoles, all the games, all the flat screens. I mean, what kind of area is this?
So pretty much what had happened was when I first started collecting, obviously, I was still living at home, trying to save up, buying some games here and there. And then I was able to kind of live in, my parents have like this garage apartment. It was kind of converted into like one of those like in-law suites. So I literally had a lot of my collection jam-packed in there. Stuff was in boxes. Stuff was on the porch. Stuff was in the garage below. It was just all over the place. So I had to factor in, when I was buying a house, the square footage of everything and where I would kind of take place with all of my gaming areas, my game rooms. So this major room that you see here is a basement. And how it kind of works is you'll go down the steps, and then the one whole side is like right what we're looking at now. And then in this little hidden room that I think the previous owner converted into like a bedroom, because it has like a bathroom attached to it, that's like where I have my little arcade set up. So then, of course, not in this video, I have the garage is like my overflow with some arcade machines and standees and things that just I haven't seemed to set up yet. And then I took over a spare bedroom that I have, and that's where I have like my PC streaming set up, and then all of my action figures, my toys, new gen consoles and games in the closet, and it just kind of exploded. So if you are collecting something this extreme, you kind of have to factor in space and trying to make the best of an area.
Very true. And what we're scrolling over now, this area seems to kind of focus on a lot of the collector's editions, right? So a lot of these collector's editions, as people know, of a lot of games will include sculptures, various merchandise associated with the games. Do you tend to buy, whenever there's like a collector's edition, do you tend to pick that up on a lot of these series?
So when I first started, I think I was buying more new games, and as a lot of people know, that gets very expensive, especially
right.
when you buy a game and then several months later it goes on clearance. So what I found is that obviously at the beginning I would start buying for systems and different game franchises that I really enjoyed. And then what I learned is if you just wait a little bit, sometimes it goes down significantly, or sometimes even finding, used collector's editions, whereas, if I had the game when it released or a little bit after release, then I would try and find the statue and the box and everything, because everything that's on display there, a lot of the stuff I have boxes for, and that's another thing. Now it's taking up double the space. So I have several closets dedicated to just box storage. So.
Right. Every time I see that Sonic Mania little statue, my stomach drops a little, because when I bought it off eBay, it came and it looked literally like it was gone through World War III. I mean, it was just like 5 different pieces were busted off that poor thing. And I've never got it since, because I had to get a refund. But yeah, I love that thing, and whenever I see that, it just makes me think of opening that box and being like, oh. I mean, he was busted off right at those legs. See how those legs are kind of thin? Yeah, that's where it snapped in the shipping.
Yeah, that's terrible. Unfortunately,
that happens though.
That happens sometimes whenever you get things shipped, or boxes are all dented up, or sometimes they stick the label right on the box. It's always a nightmare sometimes. For
sure. And especially when it's like kind of automated places like Amazon, sometimes they'll just stuff. I think it's like robots or whatever that package a lot of that stuff. So it's not always in the most ideal packing situation.
Yes. I definitely knew that. Sometimes I've ordered the tiniest little thing, and it comes in a box that's huge. Like you could fit, 50 boxes in. It's crazy how they kind of do that.
I think I'm seeing something from wow, I didn't even know there was figures for Virtua Fighter. Were
Yes,
those Japanese only, or did those come out in the States?
they did. So they're part of like this Game Pro kind of magazine series where they did a bunch of different, mostly I think like Sega related, and then they do have some Nintendo ones where they have like Star Fox and I think Luigi's Mansion and things like that. But it was like a part of this magazine advertising or something, and they have like Crazy Taxi ones and just all kinds of different. They have Sonic the Hedgehog ones and everything else. But they were here. I think it was a part of. It says Game Pro Presents on it, so it's part of like that magazine that they had.
By the way, your display game is on point. I mean, this is like museum level theming here. I mean, the way you have this stuff, because we've seen all kinds of collections. Okay, I'll be honest with you, and this is not the detriment of any of the guests, but we've seen it all. Some of it's kind of clutter city with some people's game rooms. I mean, you've clearly got it broken down here by themes. I mean, this is a very well thought out game room, and the way you displayed everything, and that's so important to the presentation.
Yes, and that's kind of what I was going for. So obviously, back when I didn't have as much room, I kind of got things lost. Like things would be behind things. There would be boxes and boxes. There would just be so much stuff. So, I mean, even here, this was kind of rushing to get this video done. There's been so much done since then. So, like, my next game room tour will be even better. And there's still so much stuff that I just haven't factored in yet. And there's tons of stuff, that I have to hang up, like posters and everything. I had to buy frames and all of this such. And it's just, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to have ample space. I wanted to have themes. It is kind of all about that presentation. I just want like that wow factor. When people come over and enjoy this, they can, really enjoy it. Like I don't want people to hold back. I want everyone to have a blast, relive all of those memories, try new things, see different things, and just, if it's all just kind of cluttered, it makes it hard for that.
What is Brandy? I got to know the square footage of this basement. It just keeps going.
I know. And then there's like another room back there where that door is that you kind of see off there. I mean, it's my laundry room, but there's still plenty of room. I was debating if I was going to build like a little bar in there, if I was going to put some more shelving.
Wow.
And so, I mean, it's not as, I mean, it is kind of big, for this, but it's like the way that the house is set up. So I don't really know the square footage, but I would assume it's probably whatever the square footage of like the regular floor is.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I would guess like maybe 1,800 square feet from what I'm seeing. When you go down there, like, and there's all these, there's all these light displays, there's all these kiosks, a lot of the time do you like kind of leave most of them off, or do you literally have to go around when you're like having people over for the game room and kind of turn every little thing on separately?
So there's kind of like a prepping stage. So obviously I don't want to have stuff on like all the time because I don't want, the stuff to get overheated, and I don't.
Right.
Yeah, the electricity bill would be terrible, I'm sure. If I left it on all the time, I wouldn't be able to buy any games. I'd have to, pay my BGE bill. But no, I mean, before this video, I went around and backtrack. So right before I moved in here, I started painting everything, all of these walls. And then I realized there are not enough plugs down here. There were only like 4 plugs in the whole basement, like in this whole room, just 4 outlet plugs. So I actually, with like, family help and everything and people that, we know, and then me also doing some of the work, we had to add several outlets in here so that you could literally have multiple on that wall, so that all of the signs and everything. And then I also had to add some breakers in my breaker box, which I have plenty of room for that. So I had to like prep. So, going back now. Pretty much before this video, I was able to just kind of run around and just plug things in. But everything is so close to an outlet now, so it makes it very easy to just kind of set up everything. And then all of the consoles, eventually I'd like to get them on those switcher boxes where you could put like 8-in-1 and things like that. But everything has their cords now associated with it, so it's just very quick for setup and gameplay.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, like, because there's these wall of consoles, right? So there was a lot of prepping too with just the wiring up of all the audio and video into the like, what's your switch box situation at this TV?
So I haven't set it up 100% yet, but everything has the wire behind the console. But I have like these, they're called like 8-in-1s. They're pretty cheap. And you just, plug the red, yellow, and white right in there. And then it goes to 1. And then you like press a button for each of the 8 consoles. So eventually I'd like to have it where, I'm not going to have every N64 hooked up, but I'll have at least one. And then the same thing with like the GameCube. I'll just have one, and then one of the PS2s, and then one of the Sega Saturn. And if I have a kiosk, then I don't necessarily have to hook them up to the big TV because everything's like already hooked up and ready to go on those video game kiosks.
Now here's the question. I'm sure after we get over the quantity and the amazing collection here, I'm sure most of the what people are wondering, the viewers, are where are you finding these kiosks? Where are you finding these amazing signs? Because these are like in the retro gaming community. These are things that, I mean, somebody would stab somebody in the back to find over before somebody else does. I mean, it is like bloodthirsty out there for some of this display stuff. Where are you finding this stuff?
Oh, so it definitely is. There are so many items that I have missed out on because, there were secret deals done, over, the internet or through social media and things like that. It literally kind of takes over a lot of your spare time, just trying to, pretty much what you have to do for these newer systems and stuff, you have to make those connections, whether it's at Walmart, Target, GameStop, Best Buy, or anywhere that has a kiosk, so that when they either go out of business, when they're upgrading to new stuff, because you're there so often and they, people know that you're a collector. Like, that's how I got my Wii U kiosk. That's how I got the Nintendo Switch kiosk. And then, of course, you have to make connections through, Facebook groups and Instagram and literally every type of social media out there, so that if you need a part, like I needed a TV for my Switch kiosk, I made a connection with someone who had made a connection at a store, and I ended up buying that TV. So that's the only thing that I paid for on that whole kiosk was the TV. And everything else, like that Magnavox Odyssey 2 sign, that I actually found in a thrift store, in the city. It was this older style, secondhand store where they have all types of movie displays and all kinds of stuff. It's just like right in the heart of the city. And I went in there, and my goal was, I'm going to find one video game item in here. I don't know if they have any, but I will find it. They had all kinds of old vintage Budweiser and, alcohol signs. They had all kinds of different things. And I saw part of that Magnavox display. And the guy only wanted, I think it was like $70 or something for it, because the box had disintegrated around it. There was literally like little pieces of the box. He must have had it there so long that, elements just kind of destroyed the box, and he plugged it in and it powered right up. And that's like original. That's from the Odyssey 2. That's just insane. And everything else, I mean, that Sega Genesis little store display, the Walmart one right there that has those games on it, that I found in Delaware. I found it on Craigslist. So you constantly have to be searching for these deals. You have to check Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, Let Go, OfferUp. You have to be in these Facebook groups where there's other people like you who collect kiosks and displays, and you have to constantly be searching on eBay and hunting those auctions and, just trying to find all of these items for good deals, because if you don't have, all this spare cash or anything else, you have to make those connections so that you can, keep buying more.
Sometimes I wonder too, like these stores that have these signs. I mean, I'm shocked even that the owners would let them go. And I can understand it, like if, let's face it, there's some video game stores that maybe they don't have that attachment. I mean, they might be gamers, but they don't have that love and the passion for the advertising. But I mean, most retro collectors are dying for that. So my point being, I'm surprised to have these stores that had those ever gave them up.
Yeah, and I mean, I find it's pretty much too, like with other fellow collectors, there's like some in my local area that have some stuff that even just blows away, my stuff. They have like original Game Boy kiosks, like it's shaped like a huge Game Boy. They have all of these, super bright signs. There's all kinds of like crazy stuff like that. They have prototype games. They have like one of only whatever artwork, the original paintings and prints. And how it works with them is if they buy something and then they want something that's, several thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, that's where I kind of get lucky, because they'll be selling things that maybe they don't have that attachment to. Like if they don't like the Nintendo 64, and that's how I got one of my Nintendo 64 signs, and even my Game Boy Color kiosks that I have, it's just, I would buy it from them because they need to get funds for the next big thing that they are collecting and going after. So sometimes people's, interest change, and some people go for those signs and then they'll trade in all of their games. And, big stores, it might be easier to sell a bunch of cheaper games than certain expensive items, depending on, who their customer base is and everything else.
And this Atari collection, what we're looking through right now on that shelf, I'm amazed at the condition of not only the labels on all the carts, but the boxes. I mean, I constantly just see these Atari boxes, 2600, just obliterated. I mean, just chewed up. I'm very impressed with and I saw the adult 2600 titles you even had with the clamshells. I mean,
yes.
the condition. I can tell you're a condition person, and that's another question I ask every guest. And I don't even need to ask you that question, because I know you're when you find stuff, you're looking at about an 8 to a 9 or even a 10 on the condition scale, because the condition on 90% of your stuff in your game room is like, very good to near mint, I would say.
Yes, and that's kind of how I am. So, of course, when it comes to certain games and systems, I either go for, complete stuff, or sometimes I go for loose carts. It just depends on, how much funds or things like that. So like the Nintendo 64, I went through collecting a loose cart. I didn't go, complete in box. I do have some box games, but I had to make sure that every single label that I got was like near mint. Even like the Clay Fighter Sculptor's Cut and things like that. I wanted the labels to look very nice. I didn't want yellowing carts. But unfortunately, sometimes, I'll buy some stuff, or people, family friends will give me a few things. Like one of my dad's friends, he actually found a bunch of Atari games somewhere that they were getting ready to throw out when he was clearing out a house. And some of the labels were a little bit messed up. So, over time, if you find the same things, you'll just kind of upgrade some quality and things like that. But I try to find the best deals, and then I try and go for things that, will hold their value. And sometimes I get a little bit lucky when it comes to that.
And I'm the same way. I mean, I'm a condition centric person for what I get. And if I got stuff if I found deals on something where stuff wasn't in great condition, I definitely just probably sell it off. Because I'm the same way. I like everything to be very presentable. Because, I'm sure you feel this way too. Because your game room is kind of like your own personal museum, your own sanctuary, your own exhibition that you can go to in your own home, and you want that to be. You want to have the games in that collection in the best condition you could find. Because, for preservation's sake, and, when you're a collector, it's just as much about the display as it is about playing the games, and it's just as much about archiving them all.
Yes. So, I mean...
Now, tell me something. Tell me about these LED, or they're not LED, excuse me. So, what do you call these
the
lights?
Neon sign?
Right. Tell me about those. Do those do those wear down over time, the lighting in those?
So I'm sure that they do. That one particularly is an older Nintendo one. It's actually double-sided, but there's only neon on one side, and then there's this older vintage-style Nintendo sign on the other side. So that one I actually found local from a closing down game store. I'm not sure if the guy was having some, money issues or things like that. But I actually got that sign, and then it came complete in the box, an Xbox 360 neon sign, which I still don't have hung up yet. But on the other wall where that Nintendo Switch kiosk is, right above it, there is a neon sign. And I don't know if anyone, has seen that video, but I actually unboxed it when it was shipped to me, and the neon had cracked one part of the glass tubing.
Ooh.
And I had to go running around like all over the state trying to find somewhere that would be able to replicate that, because I wanted not that one that we're seeing now, but the other one. And they apparently, a lot of places, they don't paint the tubes like that anymore. They don't dip them because it's, it crackles when it gets hot and they chip off, and it just wasn't, made to last like that. And most of the time, if you break a seal of those glass tubes, you can't just like fill it up and seal it off. You have to redo the whole, piece of tubing and glass, and it gets very costly. So it does have, a lot of maintenance, and, if something were to break, you have to pretty much replace it. So you do have to be very careful with these.
The other thing I love about this collection is the variety, because there's two types of collectors. There's completists, and there's collectors that are more in line with the way I am, and it's kind of getting the best of each thing. So the best of what there is for each console rather than everything there is for each console. Do you feel that you're kind of that way with your collecting, because there's so much variety of different consoles that you have?
So a lot of people always, ask about this stuff too, because some people, they'll just go for, a couple different systems, and then they'll just try and, complete everything. I kind of go in like waves. Like, I think kind of at the beginning, I wanted to go for like Nintendo 64. So I went through all of the different console variants. I had the Korean release, the Australian release, the Japanese releases, all of the different controller variants and everything else. And then games, I went through the North American set. Then I went through the color cart, cartridges. And then I went through some of the PAL releases, and then the Japanese releases. And then it's like when you get through so much of something, I remember other things. I want other things. I just want a little bit of everything. I would ideally like to complete a lot of these sets, but it's just all finding the right deals, having enough extra, money, or making those connections. So I would love to have, complete sets and have essentially some sort of like museum or interactive area where people can come and see the stuff, they can enjoy it, they can get their hands on, play with the stuff, like that would be amazing. So I don't go for one thing, and I don't just go for like one, particular time frame either. I appreciate everything, even though I'm not as old as some other collectors and I wasn't there when Atari was. I feel like I would have loved that. Like I would have loved to be back in that time and, experiencing all of that stuff. I just appreciate how everything has shaped everything nowadays. I just love that vintage feel. Some of the games I feel like are a lot more difficult. They're so much more fun, and it's, I would love to have a little bit of everything, and I'd eventually like to complete even more sets along the way.
For sure. And I guess the way I look at it, like why I don't feel that need when I collect to get everything is just because of the shovelware. When you think of let's think about like Nintendo NES, right? Like I love that console, and I love so many games on there, maybe several hundred games I even love. Even some of the games that maybe aren't as good as the others. But, I don't need like Jack Nicklaus Golf. I don't need like Sesame Street ABCs, or, you know what I mean? There's always going to be these games for every console that I can't imagine ever playing even for 30 seconds. I mean, even as a completist. So I guess like for me, that I would just never have that desire. But I see what you mean. Like just for like just for history's sake, to have them all, the whole set available to look through is like an achievement in itself. But I guess just like that, there's just always that shovelware that ends up on each console, no matter how great each console is. There's just always those duds that somehow got released. And, thing is too, it's easy to pick on sports games because what happens with sports games, as you know, Brandy, I mean, they're only desirable for the year that they're out, and then they're outdated. The roster is different. The roster changes. I mean, with the exception of games that you can go back to forever. I mean, you go back to NBA Jam forever. People go back to NFL Blitz forever. People go back to Tecmo Bowl forever. People go back to Mike Tyson's Punch-Out forever. But there's so many sports games that are destined to be in the junk bins of some dank basement in a video game store because nobody would even want to pay 50 cents for them. You know where I'm coming from with that?
Yeah, I completely understand that too. And that's why, in like a lot of my pickup videos, and if I go to like thrift stores and stuff, sometimes I don't even, film as much because I'll go in there and it'll be like the same sports games over and over again. And,
right.
Whether I got them in like a big pickup lot and I already have them, or I'm just not willing to pay like $2 for it. I'd like to try and get them, if I'm picking up an expensive title or something, maybe if they're just thrown in the lot or something. So there are plenty of games that I completely agree with that. There's some games that I'll probably never play, but, part of me just kind of like wants them as well with like the rest of the set, because if I have like all these other games and I'm missing sports titles, like it'll look a little funny. So I don't know. I also kind of get stuff that, I'm not going to play and I'm not going to open, and I see kind of both aspects of that. I'm not going to go out and spend all this money on all these, not just sports games, but like some educational things, but, just some games that I probably won't play. But I feel like that's, I kind of...
the other thing I find fascinating about store displays and kiosks is that there's not really a set protocol on what happens after that console is done. There really isn't, right? I mean, there's not a set protocol. Like Nintendo doesn't say when you're done selling this console, we'd like the kiosk back. They're just like, whatever. They look at it like a marketing expense, right? They put those in the stores to display the system, to highlight it to customers, to make them want to buy it, to make them able to play it, try it out. And then, but there's not really a protocol. It is not like a protocol for what is supposed to happen to that display kiosk after the time is done and the next console comes out, which makes it so again adds to the collectability and how difficult it is, like you said, to find, because you really got to compete on Craigslist and with all these other bloodthirsty collectors about getting these kiosks. Have you ever had like a situation where you're going head to head with some other bidder when you're even like picking up one of these things, like somebody else is coming through and you're like in a bidding war? Have you ever had any crazy stories with the pickups of some of these?
Oh, I have plenty of crazy stories, but just like a few things, on that note. Some of my stores, like GameStops, whenever, like in particular, the PlayStation 3 kiosk, I went in the store like every so often and I said, hey, if you guys get rid of that, let me know. I'll be here. I could be here in like 20 minutes with the truck. I'll pick it up. The one week that I don't go in there, they told me that they threw it out back, they busted it up, they put it in the dumpster. These things happen sometimes, and it's heartbreaking because you want to try and save this stuff, and you don't want it all busted up. So a lot of times, things like that will end up happening. And then, of course, sometimes if you're not there at the right time, there could be other people that try and swoop in. And there's been times where me and a particular buddy in the area are bidding on the same cardboard standee on eBay at the same time. And, it's like the last 10 minutes or something of the auction, and we're going up by a couple dollars here and there. And then, you just message each other like, hey, by chance, are you bidding on this Pokemon standee? And then, of course, they're like, yeah, I'm willing to go up to $300 or $400. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm out. I'll let you have it this time. And, sometimes that stuff does happen. And sometimes if someone who doesn't know about the worth of everything, they may post something online on like Facebook Marketplace, and then you message that person within 4 minutes. It's only been up for 4 minutes, and they get back to you and they say that you're like 10th in line.
Right.
It's like vicious out there. There's so many people trying to hunt for these things. There's always someone that has more money than you, someone that's always looking for this stuff. My Sonic the Hedgehog sign in particular, the light up one that Sega that was above the console wall, that one, I had wanted that one for a few years before I got it. I posted, every few months in this Facebook group, and then one day someone posted for sale, and I'm like a minute too late. Someone said, I'll take it. And then I commented, and I was like, oh, no. Like, I've been posting, every month.
Right.
I'm saying that I want this. Like, is there any way, that, I can, I don't know, pay extra to do this or do that? And the person was so grateful. And, the other person was like, you know what? You were next up in line. And sometimes you make those, those connections and stuff with people, and they ended up letting me have that particular one. And, I had to drive a 6-hour round trip to Jersey. I went up that way, and, it only cost a couple $100. So I was in shock that I got it for that cheap, and that person even willingly let me have it. But they were coming from a further distance, and they didn't feel like making the drive because it would have been like 8 or 9 hours for them. So they figured that I was a little bit closer, I could get it quicker, and I was waiting longer for it. So, sometimes you do get into these bidding wars. Sometimes there's someone just right ahead of you, and, even with several things, like in particular, I tried to get a Sega Genesis kiosk because I don't have one of those yet. And I saw it
Yeah.
posted on Facebook, and the lady got back to me. It was only posted for like $250, and those go for like thousands. So
Right.
I messaged her, and she said, "All right, when can you come get it?" Well, then I didn't hear anything back after I responded. I said, "I can come get it now." She never responded back. And then 30 minutes later, she was like, "Well, the highest bidding offer now is $1,500. Do you still want it? Or what's your offer?"
Wow.
And I was like, whoa, this like escalated way too quickly. And then the
Yeah.
person who ended up, sneaking in and getting that and offering more, that person also had a Super Nintendo huge wall display, like that they would have back in the day in the stores. And those go for like over $10,000. So
Wow.
it's just crazy, you never know what someone is going to have. It was apparently an older gentleman, and he was, going through like some health and age related issues, and, they were selling off his whole collection of things that he had back in the day when he worked in certain stores.
Now you're an incredibly good resource for approximating what. I mean, the kiosk game. Let me just run through some kiosks and just give me a rough estimate. I'm not going to hold you to the number.
Okay.
Super Nintendo kiosk. What are we talking on that? What they go
so
for?
It kind of depends. If it has the base on it, you could definitely be talking like over $2,500 if it has that base, and it's fully complete, because those monitors have a lot of issues, like the TVs, the
Right.
two TVs in there. They do have like a lot of display issues over time. They don't age well, and then that base is very hard to find. A lot of people have those tabletop versions because they don't particularly have the base.
Gotcha. And how about an NES one? Nintendo NES.
So for that one, it just kind of depends. There's been one like actual like wall unit display on eBay for the longest time for like $14,000 or something listed. Now, like the
Wow.
Nintendo's kind of funny because they have like those Play Choice 10s. They have like a tabletop version, which will be like $1,500 or more. But it's like a consoleized where you like put in the cartridges, and it just depends. There's so many different models for certain things. And I mean, if you're talking like those big wall display units where they have, shelving, and then even what I want next is one of those World of Nintendo display cases where they would have had, the game boxes, those, and you could be talking like $3,000 to $5,000 for, depending on which brand, which model, which size. And I would love one of those, but that's a little bit steep on the price there.
That's exactly where I was going next with what I want to ask you with those go for. And they have those cool, I love the most, not just the World of Nintendo on the top, because the glass slides, right? But, and the pegboard. But I love the sides. I think if I may be mistaken, but like, don't they have like kind of vents, kind of like the NES vents? Like
there's like little like
side?
divots or whatever they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are
so
cool. Yeah, those are cool. I would love to have some things like that, but a lot of people, if they have things like that, they do a lot of trading. Like they'll trade, signage, neon signs, games, standees, displays, kiosks, and they'll trade a bunch of things to try and get something big like that. And I get so attached to things. So I just don't want to get rid of things because I know how hard I worked and, how much things are that it would be so difficult to try and replace everything.
And there's something interesting about, I don't know about you probably know about this, like there's those World of Nintendo light up signs. I don't know what kind of technology they were using in those lights. It's almost like there were those little dot lights in it, and it kind of like would have it show motion or kind of. Do you know what I'm trying to get at? Like there was some kind of technology.
Fiber optic. Yeah, they're
Okay,
like those
that's what.
fiber optic signs that what I kind of relate to is like back when you were like a kid and you went to, I don't know, a monster truck event or like something on ice or, the circus or something. They would have like those lights that would have like, they're kind of like strings where like the tip of it has a little light bulb or some sort of like light on it. And it kind of all feeds out through. And then like the ends kind of, they like do this like trickling effect where it kind of makes it look like, like these stars. And those signs are very expensive. They have like those KB toy ones. I think I've even seen like a Toys R Us one, and just all of course World of Nintendo. I've even seen like other consoles and systems with them. So those are very pricey. They even have them for my buddy had a Nintendo 64 one. Of course, I wanted it, but I didn't have a few $1,000s, just to spend on it. But you're definitely talking like 2, 3, 4,000. I mean, you could be talking several thousands, just depending on which model.
The other thing that's interesting to me, I want to ask you about. A lot of this stuff, when you talk about displays, we're looking at Nintendo merchandise, shelving or little tables, side tables here. There's not. Is there even really good references out there for everything like this? Like every last thing Nintendo. Let's just say these obscure things Nintendo would sell, like these little end tables, and is there really great references out there for a collector to know everything there is to find?
So that's a little difficult too, because some of my buddies, they have these books that people have made. Like my buddy has one on like everything Pac-Man. But that's not even true, because I found a jacket and my jacket wasn't even in that book. So people have tried to accumulate, and just put all of these items together, but there's still always going to be something that they didn't think of, or something that maybe it's so limited, or maybe there just aren't enough pictures of these items and things like that. Because I've noticed over time, just when you think you've seen, it all, some prototype or some, display or something pops up and you're like, whoa, that's cool, And especially with like, when you're talking employee jackets and employee stuff, like I have a Sega Dreamcast like launch team sweatshirt. I have, some Super Nintendo jackets, the Sega Genesis jacket. I have the Sega Sports hat. And a lot of these were like made by employees, when they worked there, or they were handed out to employees, or even that Star Fox competition jacket that I have. Some of those were only competition events. And, when you're accumulating all of these different retail merchandise things, sometimes you aren't thinking about all of that stuff too. And there's always going to be something that's left out.
And there's I would assume that the technology, like you said, that is everything kind of. I'm guessing everything is kind of replaced by LEDs now. Like, are they even using that kind of technology in any of the lights? The neons and the I'm guessing everything is just LED now because of how cheap it is, right?
Yeah, and I noticed that. So, like, not in these videos. In my Switch kiosk area, I also recently picked up these, they're like the Walmart and Target displays where if you go down the aisles now in like certain Walmarts and Targets, you'll see like this big red like cabinet. It has like this plastic over top of it, and they put like controller boxes and accessories and stuff in there, and they lock it up, and it has the locks on it. That all has these LED strips running through it now. So like a lot of their newer displays, I have noticed that, where they have those LED strips, even in like the certain kiosks, like the Switch kiosk, it just seems like a lot of things are kind of changing, and the kiosks and everything are always so heavy. There's so many different pieces, and then of course trying to get them down in the basement or trying to make them fit, you have to like take apart things, and it's like hundreds of pounds. That it's me by myself trying to like lug this stuff down the steps, and trying not to get pushed with it or pushed by it, because I want to get it home right away, and I don't want to wait to have people over to help, and I'm just, trying to always get it set up. So it's just, stuff is so heavy. It's definitely changing the quality, you can tell, on things too. And yeah, it's crazy.
How many years would you say you've been actively collecting on this level? I mean, I'm not sure if I asked you that yet. Like, what age did you start? Would you like seriously collecting? What age did you start?
So I started, we briefly touched on it. It was like mid to the end of 2014 when I got, my career and everything and settled in. I started collecting, but of course it wasn't to this extent. It was, I bought a Super Nintendo, and then I bought a few games that I had when I was younger, like the classics, the Mario RPG, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, things like that. And then next thing you know, I found like a Sega Genesis because I had one, and I bought a couple Sonic the Hedgehog games, and then a few years of collecting like little things like that. Trying to think like what my first.
But this is amazing. You're telling me this collection was amassed essentially in 6 years.
Yes.
Wow.
And everyone's like, "Oh, you must be rich. You must have all this." Trust me, I'm not. I struggle like everyone else. Sometimes, you want to buy a video game, you might cut back on whatever you're eating that day. Things like that. I go through it like everyone else. It's not, I didn't win the lottery. My parents didn't give me all this stuff. Everything that you see in my collection, I've paid for. I've hunted for. I've worked these deals and everything else. And you have to kind of do that. Like, you can't just wake up one day and go, you know what, let me just start buying stuff. No, you have to, sometimes you look on Facebook Marketplace at like 1 a.m. when you wake up in the middle of the night, or 2 a.m. and you're trying to like look for these deals, or, people will send you links to things because it'll be cheaper, and, it just kind of goes like that. And I think one of the first store display items that I got was that Sega Genesis big display. I think I saw it posted on Craigslist, and this was like years back, maybe like 2015, 2016 was probably like the first store display I think that I bought. And it was listed for like $100 on Craigslist. That big Sega store display, the one that like opens up and you have those shelves in there, and it came with the keys. And it was listed, like an hour and a half or 2 hours or something away from me for like $100 or $200 or something. And it was sitting there for like several months. And I was like, you know what? Let me just ask the guy. So I messaged him. He's like, it's still available. If you can meet, we can do it this weekend. I drive in this old beat up, family friend truck, no air conditioning. It's pouring down rain. It's like the hottest summer day. Driving all the way to go pick it up. And because I showed up like that, the guy felt so bad. He like gave me money off of it. And he had a few others, but he wasn't willing to sell them because he was like a music producer or something, like a lower level, like music producer or something in the area that he was in. And I think, getting that cool display and then posting it online and just everyone going crazy over it, I think then it was like, what else is out there? And the next thing you know, it's just, you meet a couple people local and they have some signs, and then you just want even more.
And yeah, I've heard that a lot from interviewing collectors before. People assume that somebody's rich, but the truth is, it is doable I mean, it's shocking that I would have thought maybe a decade this collection would have taken to amass. So it is impressive in 6 years, but it does take. I will add to that though that it takes a tremendous amount, like you said, of searching out, research, um, networking. It's like to even when people have money to amass this kind of collection, the amount of networking, communication it takes, driving, traveling, you just like you said, getting the stuff down the stairs. I mean, it is a tremendous effort and research that is put into doing this and time.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. And it still is doable. I know a lot of things have went up in price, especially now since we're in like that COVID area, this whole situation going on. I have seen a lot of things kind of go up in price because of, like the demand and people being home and parents probably trying to occupy their children and, everyone's wanting a bunch of things. I have seen like a lot of systems, Wii, GameCube, even PlayStation 2 games, things just going up in price. And it's a little harder, but the deals are out there. Just, I think it was like 2 days ago, I got, what is it, Super Mario Sunshine on the GameCube for $5 because some lady was selling a bunch of games. I asked her if she had any others for sale when I met her, and she said, these are kind of old. I'd say like $5 each. So, of course, I bought all of them, and that's like, $60 to $80 or more than that. So, I mean, the deals are out there. People just really do have to look, and it's doable even in today's society, even with all these people out there hunting. I mean, it can be done. It's maybe not as easy, I would say, as a few years ago or, several years ago, but it can be done.
So let me try to frame a question that I've asked a lot of collectors, but I want to do it in more of an interesting way because it's one of those things that, you ask and you start to feel like a robot because you've asked it so many times. Who are the content creators? Who are the channels you watch? And for specific reasons. And let me explain what I mean by that. I watch like Happy Console Gamer because he can like tell amazing stories and you feel like you're living through his stories. I watch, like Game Chasers, for like the adventure of the hunt, right? They're hitting flea markets, they're wheeling and dealing, they're on the go. I mean, you watch like certain channels for specific reasons. Watching like James on Angry Video Game Nerd, such an obvious choice, but for the comedy, for the antics, for the do-it-yourself at-home effects that he does. I mean, let's get specific, Brandy. Like, what are some channels that you watch, but what is it about them that you enjoy? What is it specifically about just maybe 2 or 3 channels that you can name? Why would you single out a few right now? Let me ask you it like that.
So I know a lot of people may watch, like a lot of larger channels, and what I seem to find is I'm actually in like this little like Facebook Messenger, no, it's not Facebook, Instagram, like a little group chat with some personal friends of mine. I mean, we may not have met in person, and just like some other even local creators who are around, like my collection, my interests and things like that. And we recently, kind of like joined together in like these little groups to try and help each other out because we all make these videos. And, like the main purpose of doing this is to educate people. It's not out there, to make all this money and things like that. It's to educate people and to have fun and to just share things along the way and just kind of, grow as a person, get more comfortable on camera and things like that. So in these groups, and even local, when I bought this guy's Xbox kiosk, my buddy Blips and Pips, he has a channel, that I feel like I can connect with because he does, all like the local news, what happened that week, in video game news, like everything that happened that week. And then even, Ed's Retro Geek Out, he collects a lot of games and toys, and he gives like the toy history, and that's something that, I kind of appreciate because I also collect Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle toys. I grew up with a lot of different, toy franchises and everything else. And, Retro Rick, I've met him in that group too, and he'll find deals too, and then he resells some things that he may find for cheap. And, it's just interesting because some of the items I may have seen all these times, out and about, and I didn't know they were worth that much. Or maybe if I do find them, or if I'm out hunting and I want to find them, maybe I can get them for a good deal and just add them to my collection because I didn't realize they were so expensive. And, just creators like that. There's a lot of us. And I mean, even Pac-Man Case, he's a pretty awesome guy, and he has tons of different consoles that he collects for in games, and just seeing, different games that he shouts out. And even NES Addict, he has all of this crazy Nintendo stuff, this nostalgic stuff, just going through there. And I just try and, give the little guys, a watch and go through there. And if there's anything big, I try and get it from whatever sources. And, of course, when you're on YouTube and stuff, a lot of people's channels pop up. So, of course, you're going to watch, if you're into toys, you're going to check out Laura Legends, because she has a crazy toy collection. Right. And, I'd love to do that a little bit more, too. I just have to shift this room upstairs around a little bit and turn that into, like, my toy cave area, and then maybe take over the last bedroom, in the house, or maybe eventually get a bigger house, just for toys and games, or get a museum, or, So I just try and go around and just give everyone a little bit of love and learn some things about, little collectors, and then just learn the news and upcoming games and stuff that release, and just kind of go from there.
Yeah, Ed's Retro Geek Out, those toy history episodes, I just, even before we did the show tonight, I was watching his New Adventures of He-Man one, and he does interesting things. When he cuts the commercial, I haven't seen this before, somebody do this. When he cuts to a commercial on Ed's Retro Geek Out, this last episode, he used a segue from the He-Man show that was segued to a commercial break to segue to the point in the video where it goes to commercial break. I thought that was...
Yes, I just saw that, too.
So you noticed that, too, right?
I did.
Smart.
I saw that. That is so creative.
I know, super creative. The way he uses... And I'm somebody on my channel, I'm all about toy commercials because that's what I show in between when I'm doing gameplay. And he is unbelievable. His use of the toy commercials interspersed with the history of those toy lines is unbelievable. He's a master editor at doing those. I mean, it's the level of... I put his stuff at the level of that Pixel Dan does. I mean, it is a tremendous work. He must put in hours doing those toy history videos. And Laura Legends. He does. Laura Legends is amazing too. And I think so much of her, I'd love to get her on the show. And her personality is like so much a part of it because she's so funny. And it makes me think of like Game Dave too, because you can't separate. When you think about those shows, immediately you think about their personality. And some people just have that wit and that comedic sense that they're just entertaining, just talking about anything, and they have that.
Yes, I've definitely seen that. And the crazy thing is, so I'll kind of segue into like two little points from that. So how I started on YouTube is I actually was reached out, like someone reached out to me and they were like, hey, I have this YouTube channel. I talk about Magic the Gathering cards. I have like 70 some, thousand subscribers. I would love to work with you with your amazing collection. He's like, I feel like you could blow up. Let's have lunch. So I meet this random person that I've never even met before, just off of social media. We go and we have lunch, and he brings up this idea where he's gonna come over, film a game room tour video. He's gonna do all the editing. I'm just gonna be me, and we're gonna go in together. Well, so this guy comes over, and he films this game room tour video, the very first one where I sound kind of like a robot, because I was like so terrified that I had some random person over. I never met the person. I mean, I did like a little, like a search just to make sure that they didn't have like any pending, court cases and things like that, all the free stuff. So I have this person come over, filmed for like 6 hours it took, because, I was so nervous. I didn't know how to act on camera. Even now, I still kind of get in like that robotic, state in some of my videos. But like in real life, I'm like so animated. I have people like laughing all day long. I like say some of like the outlandish things. And for some reason, I cut a lot of that out of my videos, which I don't get. Well, this guy, he said, this took way too much time. Like I didn't realize how much it would be to manage 2 channels. And he like opted out. So we didn't like, set anything in stone or whatever. And then I was kind of like left to try and figure it all out myself. Like I didn't have a camera. I was just filming on my phone. I don't have like the microphone at the time. Like I didn't have any lighting or anything. Like I had nothing. And I was just kind of like, well, here you go. So then I had to like jump in and, start doing all of this. And I can tell a difference from like the very first episode to like now. But I feel like there's still so much more that I can learn and grow and kind of show. And, I'd love to have my editing be a lot better. I'd love to learn, educate myself on it. And I just wish that in some of those videos, people would like see, these remarks or things that I make. I just, for some reason, like, I don't know, I cut a lot of it out. Like I'll say like these crazy things, or like something will happen in the middle. I've had games fall on me, off the shelf and like hit me in the head in the middle of a video. And then like I cut it all out, but it's like so funny that some of this stuff happens.
Well, Jay here, NES Addict, he has the videos on how to make a game room out of a closet and a small space. But I think you got the talent to go around and charge to redo people's game rooms in a full-size room, because this is really some of the, and I'm not just doing this because you're our guest tonight, this is really some of the best displays and theming of a game room I've ever seen. I mean, this is just the amiibo wall. I know that was just on pegboard, but every section of this game room is meticulously themed and set up. And this is a talent, Brandy, that not a lot of people have. I got to be honest with you. There's so many people with massive game rooms, but not all of them can really say that they have this talent for the displaying of everything.
Well, I really do appreciate that. It means a lot just, to have someone appreciate that, because there's so much like behind the scenes that people don't see. And maybe I should show some of this stuff more, but, even just buying shelves and doing research on which ones will fit, and even taking the trips to IKEA and trying to load these huge boxes of these Billy bookcase shelves and the IKEA Kallax and all of these other things like in the car. And, I'm doing all this stuff like by myself. And, it's just crazy. And then, bring it all home, trying to like carry it in. All this stuff weighs so much too. And, just like putting the stuff together, trying to really actually like envision where you're going to put these things. And, just setting this stuff up and then just adding like the final touches. And, the second that you buy a game, everything has to be shifted over because of, the advertising and, everything else. It's just, there's so much work that has to be done. And I've actually had people like reach out and ask me, what shelving would you use here? And I actually just met some person who he's redoing his wife's, work area, because now she's like working from home and all that. So he had to like shift the game room, and he's like, I love how yours is set up. Would you mind helping me? So, people do reach out sometimes, and, I love doing that. I would love, and not everything's how I would want it to be, because I still have, in the new house, I still have all those amiibos, and they aren't, displayed like that. I would have loved to continue that in this house, but then I wouldn't have been able to put the Switch kiosk anywhere. And, I'm debating if I should like just pin them all like around like the top of the walls, and then put like LED strip light above it in like the crease of the wall, and then, kind of have it like all lit up and just all around like the tops of the rooms. It's so many ideas that you constantly have, and you want to like change things up. And, if I had more room, I would do this. Or, if I had a museum, I would do this, and then I would have this. And, it all gets changed up, and you just want things to be different. And it does kind of take a lot.
How many times have you gotten in like a display kiosk and it's needed a lot of like rehab? It's needed a lot of is there times you've taken one in that you kind of had to do some restoration on, or have you mainly been lucky enough to find them and they're pretty much all there?
So not all of them come complete. Sometimes, like a console's missing, or you change out the demo console for like one that'll actually play all the games. So one in particular was my Xbox 360 kiosk. I wanted one so bad, and I didn't care which shape it was in. So I bought one. It didn't have a TV. It didn't have a TV mount. It didn't have the plastic console holder. It didn't even have a poster on the front. All the cords and cables were cut on the back of it. It was just like nothing worked on it, but it was kind of the bare bones. And next thing you know, I'm searching eBay. I find someone and ended up sending me a link, and I found like the TV bracket mount. And then I kept going on Facebook Marketplace, and I found the exact model TV, and I found it for like $30. So I got in my car, drove an hour, picked it up real late at night. It was like late after work. I met someone like down the street, picked it up, and I had that. And then someone had an extra like clear plastic piece, because they got it from like a Microsoft representative or something back then. And then I, had to get that. And then I actually made a connection with this guy who does tattoos for a living. And he's like a great tattoo artist. And he's not too far away from me. He used to work for Microsoft. And he just gave me a whole bunch of replacement fans. He gave me the remotes that go to the TVs. He gave me that front Halo, alt print that I have on it. Like, he gave that to me a while back. He has like some displays. I just haven't made a video on, that pickup. There's like keys for the original kiosk. I have like 5 or like 10 sets of these items. So now I'm like, well, I need to, kind of give back to the community. So now I'm trying to find people who actually need them. And, we can work out some sort of deal where maybe they cover like shipping or something, or if they have like a part that I need. And then another kiosk that I'm currently trying to find parts for is that PlayStation 3 kiosk that I have. It's missing the plastic cover that holds the console. It's missing the TV. It's missing the pole on the back, the TV mount. And I found someone who has the pole, the clear plastic cover, and part of the TV mount. So then it's going to be, next to impossible finding the other part of the TV mount and the TV. So it's kind of just all a process.
And this informational folder here, what is this discussing?
So this particular kiosk is made by this different company. They're called Kid Space. They're still around today, and I believe they're based in like Canada. Well, back then they really geared towards dental offices, doctors' offices, even McDonald's. You'll see in here these like little McDonald's kiosks. They, you remember seeing back with the N64 or the GameCube. They really marketed towards these companies where they wanted things to be like more kid-like, more appealing, more colorful, not just like for adults. They're a little bit shorter. And, this company, when I bought this particular kiosk, I bought it for like $100. It was like 2 hours away from me, and it came from a dental office. And the guy who had it, he must have got this manual with it. So no one else that I know has this full-size manual of all of these older products. And some of these were like $2,000-$3,000 back then because of shipping and, the paint colors that they used and, plastic and everything and the different consoles. And this is like a third party, company. It's not like Nintendo didn't make this or PlayStation didn't make this or Sony or, Microsoft. It was more so this company who did all of these different interactive things. So when I got this, I thought this was really important, having this, because if anyone else needs parts or, anything, they can kind of look at this stuff and see how they were. So I felt like it was very important to kind of add this in there just so that other people can kind of see which other, products were out there at the time.
Isn't it ironic too, Brandy, that this company, this kid space company, that was ahead of its time. We're seeing right now an explosion happening in a very similar fashion. Arcade 1-ups and all these companies now are getting in on the home arcade market. Let's call it maybe the bargain home arcade market, because they're trying to bring it to everybody's home versus the diehard arcade collectors out there. They want to bring it to anybody in everybody's home that is into gaming could have, an arcade 1-up now. So we're seeing really an explosion now of that.
And I really think it's great. So like a lot of these kiosks and things, some collectors are a little bit, picky. You're always going to have like those purists where they want the real arcade machines because they don't like the emulation or they don't like, the smaller versions and things like that. But I think it's great because any way that you can, educate people and you can really have everyone just enjoy this. Maybe you don't have $800 or $1,000 for a brand new huge arcade machine. Maybe you don't have, the best living situation, but you still want to have a good time. I think it's amazing, that these companies are out there and it just keeps adding more. And I mean, I even have a couple arcade 1-ups. I have the little, it's like the Home Shopping Network or something that they did for like the Pac-Man. It has Pac-Man, Galaga, Galaxian. It's like you can put it on the counter, mounted on a door, mounted on the wall. So I have one of those, and then I have like an Asteroid Deluxe one as well. I mean, I would love the Mortal Kombat. I would love Street Fighter. I love the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now I know that one's a little bit tricky because it's like 4-spot. So I would love like a real big arcade for that, just for like the space. But I can definitely see the appeal with some of the smaller ones and the less expensive ones.
Right. There's one Game Boy kiosk I've seen. You're probably familiar with this one. I think it was on either Pixel Game Squad or before they had that when they had Retro Liberty. It was like a giant version of like a Game Boy. Have you seen that one?
Yes, my buddy has it. I get the luxury of going over his house because he doesn't live that far from here, and he has one, and it's so cool looking. I keep trying to get it from him, but he ended up declining it all for like over $5,000, which I didn't have it anyway. I was just trying to like see if I like sold things if I could get it.
Right.
Which I would never really sell this stuff because I just love everything. But he Yeah, he has one. He ended up trading it to a buddy of his, but it's still at his house. And it's just so cool. He even has a Pokemon Snap machine, and I was going to end up getting that too. But then, of course, another buddy, he kind of owed him a little bit for like helping him out and trading some things. So he got it, but I would have been next up. So I would love one of those blockbuster ones. The Pokemon Snap machine, there's Snap stations where you have like an N64 kiosk, but you can print out, those stickers. I remember going in there with my copy of the game and printing out all of the different pictures and everything. And it was just really kind of ahead of its time with that little chip reader and everything.
I got to tell you, so I've seen all the kiosks. Okay, I think they're all amazing. All the kiosks you have. I got to say, there's something about the Play Choice, the Super Nintendo kiosk, and that big Game Boy one. There's something about the attention to the detail that Nintendo put into those ones that I don't know why those stand out to me. Would you kind of agree with that? There's something about those that stand out. Maybe it's the artwork on them, or just the overall theming of them. Something special about those ones.
So I definitely agree with that. So I think up next, I did, since these videos, I got an original Xbox kiosk, and that one has really taken, one of my favorites too, just because of like the amount of like bass and everything in there. Like, it's so loud, it's so like in your face. But there's older ones, like the Super Nintendo especially. I don't know what it is about it either. I think it's just like that bass with that artwork on there, the color schemes maybe it's more so like that nostalgia. Maybe it's, I can't even put a finger on it. And just having like a huge Game Boy, like that's so crazy that they would have, did something like that. You don't really see things like that. Like, they're not going to make a huge switch, and have that. Like, maybe they were trying different things at that time, and maybe that's why.
The Magnavox sign.
Yes. So this is the one that I found. I actually found it local, and it was found in Baltimore City in Maryland. And there was like this big event going on that day. So I went down there just to, enjoy some food and drinks and everything with friends. And we all decided that we were going to check out some of the local shops down there. And there was one, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was like something Thriftman or something. It was somewhere down there in the city. And we walked past, and he had all kinds of like trinkets and displays and, Budweiser signs and other alcohol signs and just like old stuff. And then had like this big mummy in like a casing. I don't know if it was like used in a movie or something. Had like this big Wizard of Oz, like I think it was from like some sort of play or something. They had like this big display. So I didn't think that there would be anything game related in there. I even found like some toy stuff. Like, I found like Slappy and like some Goosebumps things and like older toy stuff, but I didn't really see any video games. So I said, well, I'm sure something in here has to be game related. So I'm walking around, and I see it tucked behind like some Budweiser signs, and it said Magnavox. And I was like, wow, this has the same image as the Magnavox Odyssey 2 box. And it even has the same quote, quality in every detail. So at the time, I did a quick search, and I couldn't find anything on it. I didn't know if it was, real or not. And I didn't know how much I'd be willing to pay for it, because I didn't know if it was legit or not. So I asked the guy, and he said, well, there was a price sticker on the box. So we looked, and there were like little pieces of the box. It had disintegrated, and it was just laying all over the floor. And he's like, well, how about we just plug it in and see if it works? So he plugs it in, and of course, it has like this old switch on it. And when you switch it, you hear like the vroom, 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 like it's trying to like light up. And then it lights up, because it's one of those big tube lights. And it lights up, and I'm like, okay, I have to have this. And he's like, yeah, this was displayed back in the day in stores that had Magnavox products, like appliances and TVs and other things. and this was their video game display, and it's at the box. So I don't even know if it was displayed much or if it was displayed and then they put it in the box. So I think I ended up getting it for around like $70 or so. And I just remember I was so excited. I walked it back to the car. I like put it in the seatbelt and everything. I was just so excited to have this because this is one of the oldest door display signs that I've ever seen. And I was just so excited. And then, of course, when I posted it in all these groups, people were like, I remember that. I remember that. I'll buy it from you. I'll give you 300. I'll give you 500. I'll give you, everyone was like in this bidding war. And I'm like, sorry, not for sale.
Gotcha. And this little turnstile Sega Genesis cartridge case, what does it say on the side? It says like new something, new rules. Sega. Oh, new releases.
So this was a Walmart store display, and they would put their new releases, their 12 new releases on the front, and then you would be able to like flip them around and read the front of the box and then the back of the box, and then you'd say, "Hey," to the Walmart person, and then they'd come over with their keys. They'd open it up, and then they'd have back stock in there. They'd have, probably like however many copies of each of the games. So you would point out which ones you would want, and then they would go in there and retrieve a copy for you.
And that's really cool as opposed to how they do it today. Like if you look in a Walmart today, it's just kind of all on the shelves. There's all kind of just locked on the shelves. Like that's a more interesting way when you can like use a turnstile and kind of rotate them.
Yeah, kind of like interactive, a little bit, or like use your imagination and like really. Because now you just, like, see it in there, but you can't, like, if you want to look at the game or look at the back or anything, I mean, you can just search on your phone. But if you want to do all of that, you kind of have to, like, find someone, have them open it up. They put it behind the counter. It's, like, this whole big ordeal just to get a game.
Right. Now, how many of these kiosks do you get? I mean, are the CRTs always okay?
So I believe most of the ones that I've got that came with the TVs, I'm pretty sure almost all of them were good. Now, of course, it's uncommon and stuff because people usually need pulps for them because the TVs will have that burn in them. Like, I think the other GameCube one that I had a little bit more burn in it from, like, whatever it was playing constantly, because I found two of them. They were both at two dental offices, and they were posted on Craigslist for like $250 each, and it came with all of that, all of those new controllers, and then I ended up selling one to someone else who collects them, and with that money, I was able to get the kiosk that's next to it on the floor side, that the battle station, the Nintendo DS battle station, where it has two Nintendo DSs on it. I ended up getting that, and then I think something else, game-related.
That's really cool. And all the plastic is intact there around the console. Is that one of the things that's usually cracked or breaks easily when they kind of encapsulate the console?
Yeah, so sometimes they have, like, yellowing on them, and they'll have cracks in them, because you have to keep in mind that these things were like meant to be played, and sometimes they do take a beating from like kids and people who are playing these games, and you might just have young kids who were just like kicking them or with their families and things like that. So sometimes they aren't in great shape when you get them, and sometimes there's not too much that you can do to try and fix them.
So we've been through your game room. We've seen the kiosk. We've talked about inspirations. We've talked about how long you've been collecting. Tell me what is on your holy grails list. Like what are you actively dying for right now? Is there specific things? Are you looking to expand upon certain collections? Where is your head at right now as far as collecting?
So I have this problem where I go all over the place. So what I would ultimately want, whether it'll happen in the next year or if I can ever set aside this kind of money, or if I can just keep holding out for a great deal, would probably be one of those big cabinets, like those store display cabinets, like the World of Nintendo cabinets, where you have like the glass stuff on top and then like the other shelving on like the bottom where they would put the games and the, the console boxes. I would probably like to have one of those in my collection.
Right.
Now, there's so many things that I want, though. I want a Super Nintendo kiosk, but some of these things are very manageable, and I feel like I can get them. It's just that cabinet, trying to find someone who would want to get rid of one, or, I'd even settle with, a big Sega one, but I love that World of Nintendo, how that looks with like those colors. I feel like that would really tie in with a lot of other displays that I have. So I feel like that would probably be like the ultimate thing that I want. And then, of course, many kiosks, Sega Genesis. I'd love a Sega Saturn, with the big vinyl and, Sonic the Hedgehog on it, and that orange and that blue color, and how big and massive it is. Like, that would be amazing. Even, the Super Nintendo kiosk, the Game Boy kiosk. It's just, I want so many different things. Even some arcade machines, I would want. So it's so much stuff.
It really is. And, I have like, I think 6 or 7 arcade one-ups. So it's like, it's like the bargain man's arcade. But one thing, I don't know why I've always wanted this, just because memories as a kid. I used to love the claw stuffed animal machines. And what I'd like to do is get one of those, but fill it up with only Nintendo plushes. So, like Mario's and Luigi's and Yoshi's in there, and just like kind of, fill that up and kind of Nintendo theme it like a Nintendo claw machine. I'd love to have something like that. And I bet those, I don't know what those go for. Maybe some people in chat could chime in. The claw machines, I would think those would be cheaper than a lot of the regular arcades, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, and I don't, are.
And you know why I want to do that too, Brandy? Because I want to finally get to see what it's like to adjust. You know how they would always have the claw so it's super weak and just would drop everything? I want to see like how you can adjust that, like to make it actually grab them better, and that's interesting to me, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely cool, especially the older ones. I feel like you can get anywhere between, $100, $300. I've seen them pop up. I even thought about it myself. And then there's coin pusher machines. I don't know what it is, but anytime I go into some sort of arcade, I always get stuck playing those things.
Well, you try to push them off the ends. It's like an avalanche of quarters.
Yeah, and if you do it right, if you put multiple in at one time, it pushes it all, and that's like the trick. And you can get so many prizes. I don't know. I just always thought having one of those or something, that would be fun too. But, there's only so much room and so much stuff you can, accumulate in one little area.
Another stupid one that I'm nostalgic about is like the chicken that lays like the little 10-cent toys. You ever seen those?
Yes.
Like the chicken does like a little dance, and then it drops instead of an egg. One. Oh, you did?
Not me, but our like little like pharmacy or local store, and you'd walk past, and I don't know if it was like a motion sensor, but it would like yell or make some sort of noise at you.
Oh, and yeah, I remember that too.
Get your attention.
I love all that stuff. I mean, I miss that. It's just you don't see that like anymore, really. I mean, and even the stupid, I've talked about it before on the show, but the stupid sticker machines with the holographic kind of 90s horror stickers. I miss seeing all that kind of cheesy stuff. I mean, something about it. These are all your personal like arcade games, too?
The made rides or whatever, like the little Flintstones and all the different ones that you just set on, and then even the gumball machines from Blockbuster.
Right. And the ones that, like the little bouncy ball ones that come down like the little track after you buy them.
Right.
You have all those arcades in your garage that you were just showing with the light guns?
Yes.
Those are awesome.
So I have the Carnival machine is in the basement. I wanted to get all of them in the basement, but I have the like widen door frames, and the Carnival machine, when we tried to get it down the steps into the basement, it fell like not even 2 inches, and I heard this release of pressure. It was like this, and I thought something terrible happened. And of course, when we get it inside the door frame and then built the door back around it, I went to go plug it in, and the sound was there, but there was no picture on the TV. So the TV monitor actually busted. So,
oh, wow.
A few $100s later, and a rebuilt, chassis and a new monitor that I had to have someone come out and repair, I was finally able to get it up and running again. But I was so paranoid to bring anything else like that in the basement because I didn't want to, have that same thing happen again. Because it only like fell to the step. It was like on an angle. It was only an inch or so that it fell, and just did that much damage.
Wow.
And that was an expensive arcade machine. I spent, like $900 or something on it, as opposed to the other ones I got for a couple $100 at places that were getting rid of them or closing down or clearing them out.
Talk to me about Carnival for a second, because I don't have a recollection of that game. Is that kind of like a Carnival Circus version of like a House of the Dead kind of thing? Is it like horror themed?
So it was released on Halloween back in the day, and it was never ported to a video game console, so you can only play it on the arcades. And of course, it's a light gun game, so there's like a couple different. It's like any other light gun. They have, click on this area, or they have this little area. So they have like this haunted house, and it has like these scary, like House of the Dead style, like zombies and other things. And then there's like this fun house area where you have like evil clowns, and just the comments that they make in there. I can see why it's not geared towards children. Like when you shoot them, they're like, "Thank you, may I have another?" Like it's just these weird humor and comments in there, and it's just so different than anything else. So I remember playing it with my brother back in the day when we went to like New Jersey or something at the beach, and there was one arcade. It was like a little breakfast area, and they had this little arcade attached. So while everyone's eating food, the family and everything, me and him, we're just dumping quarters into that machine trying to beat it. And then, of course, we'd get yelled at, like, "Come eat your food." So, we wouldn't get to actually play through everything. But it was just, so much fun, and it brought back all of those memories. And then when I went to this video game store, they had it on sale, and I brought my brother with me, and we loaded it up in the truck and, ended up bringing it back. And it was just so much fun. Me and him played it, and it was just like we had picked up where we left off back, I guess like in the 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, and I like that you bought that game because it's not ported to anything else. And that to me would make it more special, that you can only play it like that. And there's something about light gun games anyways that are always a blast to play. And they're replayable too. Some games aren't very replayable. Light gun games are always replayable because
it's always different.
Yeah, it's so interactive.
Yes.
And I love the molding on these Dreamcast kiosks too. That's really cool molding, how like the TV is kind of molded into it instead of just a separate TV. I like that.
Yes, they really did, something cool with these. I like how it looks. I like the style. I like the colors. These are definitely, some of my favorites in my collection.
And they came stock with a white Dreamcast and 2 white controllers, and some had a black and 2 black controllers.
Well,
did
they
you?
would have had white, but since I got two, the one didn't come with one. So I put that one in there. I put the sports one in there just to add a little bit of,
Oh yeah, I
flavor.
like that.
So I did that.
Yeah, I noticed that. That's cool. Well, listen, I think we've gone through just about everything. This is just a unbelievable game room. I mean, you got you can't say hours of entertainment down there. You just have weeks and weeks of entertainment with all those games. And like I said, the theming is some of the best I've seen. The way you display each shelf, it's incredible. I mean, it's like museum level theming. It's like when you go into what is it, Nintendo in New York, and you look into the time they spent theming everything out in each cabinet and the displays and the way they present everything. I mean, it's right on scale with that. So very impressive. And I think I'm going to hand it over to Brady now. We're going to see what kind of questions we've got from the viewers.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got 4 questions here. 3 of them are from NES Addict, but I'm gonna go to David B69's question first. He wanted to know if any of your collection is graded.
So I have not wandered down that road just yet. There are some items that I have that are sealed that I should get graded. I just haven't, done all of the research because I have tons of, people around me that I've bought things from, and they have tons of their prototypes graded. They have sealed games graded, and I've bought a few prototypes from them. But I haven't actually went through and, mailed things out and, spent the money or research or anything to know about all of that. So I have not done that just yet. But I think at some point in the future, some of the sealed items that I have, like the older Atari games and some press kits and other things like that, I think I should probably have at least the prototypes and stuff graded.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting to see what those get graded as.
Definitely.
And NES Addict wanted to know how many proposals you get from gamer guys with such a sick collection that you have.
So pretty often, so
I bet.
I kind of get the extremes. So on my channel, I try to keep things educational, and I try not to go that route as some other, I hate to say it, some other girl gamers. They'll kind of use certain things to their advantage, and I feel like they don't generally educate. They just kind of show off things, and they get all of this, attention. And I'm trying to do things in a more like modest way, which, you can definitely see like the difference. Like you don't get all, you don't grow as much as other, girl gamers that kind of do that. So I'm trying to do things like in a different way. And it's a little bit more challenging. And then of course, on my channel, it's no secret, everyone gains weight. And I have gained a little bit of weight from the beginning of when I started my channel. And I recently noticed that some of my videos have been posted onto outside websites that are people who are into bigger women. And I saw that someone, without my permission, I mean, I still get credit because they link to YouTube videos, but people comment about my weight. And this is something that I have seen. And unfortunately, being a female, doing this stuff, people are very critical on things. And I would say for every marriage proposal that I get, I probably get 3 or 4 negative comments or some sort of comment about the way I look or the weight or how my clothes fit or things like that. So it's very crazy, to kind of think about, and, something that I just became aware of, while doing YouTube.